This is Unrendered on IKTV. My name is Tony Regisford, and I'm chatting with Mrs. Anesia Baptiste, former senator for the New Democratic Party in the House of Parliament. She's here today as the leader of the Democratic Republican Party. Anesia, quickly, we want to get on to talk about you and your ideas and how you're going to move this country forward, etc. So quickly, let's just continue this analysis.
Okay.
Why you think there's a perpetuation of a dynasty? And I'm going to go straight to the point. Camilo Gonsalves is back, and okay, he's probably going to enter the political fray. I am arguing that, and you yourself identified, that people are put into to offices of power or governance by the ballot. It's not a thing where Gonsalves is going to appoint him to be prime minister or appoint. Of course, he can make him a senator and make him a minister. I understand that. But he cannot be elected unless he's elected. Mm-hmm. So how can Gonsalves perpetuate a dynasty?
So I said it seems as though there's an interest in perpetuating a dynasty, and I say that because you have to remember that historically there are comments on record from the Honorable Prime Minister where he would have expressed that desire. I think, if I recall well, it was just after he had won the last elections and they were having their victory celebrations at Argyle, and he made a comment to the effect that, with reference to the airport project, that what David didn't finish, Solomon would complete. Yeah. And it was made more than once, and persons immediately recognized that to be his expression of the fact that he would like to see his son as Prime Minister after him.
Funny enough,
yes,
I really do not make that linkage. In that utterance, I read that as something else.
I do not ignore it. It's a historical fact, and it perhaps is his wish, and he's free to wish that. And as you have identified, the gentleman is also free to get into the race and to run like everybody else, and to hope that the people gives him the support.
What if he comes and joins your party? Would you accept him?
Hypothetical question. I don't think Camilo would come to join my party.
I know, but give me a hypothetical answer. What if?
Well, if we get there, we'll cross it, that bridge.
Because, I mean, I really want us to look at this whole idea of cross-fertilization. What if Maya Eustace decides that
so it's all
she
what
wants
ifs,
to come
and obviously we would only be able to deal with it when if it happens. But the point is, if this is what you're asking, the DRP is not against anybody wanting to join the party, regardless of who you were or are, okay? Once you share the same ideals as we do, and you feel that you can contribute towards perpetuating our ideals and the kind of governance we hope to bring for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, you are welcome. We put no limitations in that regard.
Okay, quickly, the analysis on the kind of gentler New Democratic Party, because that's where we left the second segment.
Yeah, I really believe that this lack of care and concern for their own people and the reflection of a poverty in terms of running your own affairs properly is a really negative reflection on their potential to run government. And I think one has to look at that to determine whether you want to call it, whether it means that they are kind and gentle or not. I think you have to look at the behavior and look at those policies in terms of behavior to really determine. I mean, if you're saying that, if you're asking me if I think that behavior showed kind and gentle, the answer is really no. Okay? But that is just really reflecting on the policy, practice, behavior of the party and its leadership.
People are skeptical about you, Anesia, and your strong religious beliefs. You, at no time are you afraid to stand up behind what you believe. And people think that you're going to be dogmatic about it, you're going to stuff it down people's throats, and you're going to be intolerant of people who don't share your religious views. How can you assure Vincentians that this is not the case?
Well, first of all, I want to make it clear that it is not everybody that feels that way. I interact with people all the time of
Yeah.
different religious persuasions.
But I've heard enough people say it, so.
It's not everybody that feels that way, and that idea was first perpetuated by my political enemies. And so it is really part of their propaganda machine to try to paint me as unfit for governance.
Right.
The second thing is, what really are the religious views that they are claiming make me unfit? Because oftentimes when people say things, if you don't ask, you realize when you do ask that they don't even know what your religious views are. So when answering this question, I'd rather, maybe, I don't know, give me an example of a religious belief that I have that somehow will be a danger to people, because
let me be specific.
what really are people asking
let
about?
me be specific.
Those who say so.
Let me be specific on
Sure.
on one count. The Thusian,
Yes.
of which you are a part.
Yes.
I have heard many radio broadcasts from the Thusians chastising and beating up on the Roman Catholics, the Pope, etc. So, and I'm not being judgmental here. I'm not saying the views they expressed are wrong or
What do you mean
right.
when you say chastising and beating up on the Roman Catholic Church?
Criticizing very strongly,
Okay.
okay, the practices of the Catholics, the Roman
Okay.
Catholics,
Okay.
and almost demonizing the Pope for that matter. Okay, I've literally heard it myself.
I would rather you say what you mean.
And, well, I just said it, demonizing. And there is a sizable population of Roman Catholics here. How can they feel comfortable knowing that you are a Thusian and you're wanting to lead this country, and you're going to somehow be able to separate those views of them from your political views?
It would be important for you to really perhaps recall, since you say you have heard many, one example of something that was said that you're calling demonizing the Roman Catholic Church and Pope. I heard you say criticizing very strongly, and that I could take, because we have been, as have Seventh-day Adventists, as have Rastafarians, as have evangelicals, been critical of certain teachings of, let's say, for example, the Roman Catholic Church or other religious bodies or non-religious bodies. And to be critical of a teaching,
Okay, it doesn't necessarily
to
mean
say you
demonizing.
don't agree with it doesn't mean that you are demonizing.
I am saying that the views expressed are so strong, and for matter of fact, they are so topical within what your discourse is. It's almost as if the Thusians are setting out to prove a point or to disprove what is
I think
felt
too
by the Roman
much
Catholics.
is read into that whole exercise, which really does not reflect the facts. The facts of the matter are, if you read the scriptures and if you do certain historical and religious studies, you would see why certain religious groups disagree with certain teachings. And it happens here all the time. Other religious groups have crusades, and they're very critical of certain teachings of other groups, namely, for example, the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And they call people out of certain religions and say, well, come and keep Sabbath Saturday and not Sunday. That's not demonizing, but they do it all the time in their crusades, in their programs, etc., in their television programs, etc. The fact of the matter is this, however. The Thusia Seventh-day Adventist Church is not the Democratic Republican Party. And the Democratic Republican Party is not the Thusia Seventh-day Adventist Church.
How are you going to separate
the Democratic,
you are the
just
leader.
like this, just like this. The same way nobody asks Honorable Ralph Gonzalez, how does he separate his Catholicism, which he holds very dear. He has gone to Mount St. Benedict. He has written a book on it. I've
But
never even
they're
written a
known to be
book on
very
my
tolerant.
religion. Hold on, hold
They're
on.
known to be
Let's
very
be fair
tolerant,
here.
yes.
If he is so passionate about his religion, he can talk about it, he can pray about it, he can encourage people. He has members on his cabinet who are of different religious persuasions. The NDP has members who are of different religious persuasions and have governed with members of different religious persuasions, but they have all governed. The issue is governance is not about religious sectarianism. Governance is not about what your religion is. Governance is about being able to protect the rights and freedoms of the people. And none of my detractors, none of the propagandists can ever say that I have done anything as a senator, done anything as a communications manager in the Ministry of Tourism, which were part of governance, that showed that I did not respect the rights and freedoms of the people.
My question to you is that, would you, and I'm going to go to the Roman Catholics again, would you have a staunch Roman Catholic as part of your team?
Since governance is about rights and freedoms and not about religious sectarianism, then it doesn't matter if you're Catholic, Baptist, Pentecostal, Adventist, Evangelical, Rastafarian, no religion, anybody could be a member of the DRP, and as long as you pass the relevant tests and scrutiny to be a candidate, you can be a candidate. Do you know that when I announced this party last year, one of the constitutional principles I read out, I adapted it from the US Constitution, and it pretty much says that there will be no religious test required to determine membership or candidacy for the DRP. That is a part of the US Constitution also.
You bring me to another...
No religious test.
You bring me to another question, and I know time is running on. You bring me to another question. A government led by the Democratic, or government of the Democratic Republican Party led by Anesia Baptiste.
Yes.
What would be your take on religion teachings in school? Because, you know, that's a global topic, and you know, one's talking about exercising tolerance and being able to accept that there are different views. We're talking within the Christian faith here. I mean, we're not even talking about Islam and Hindus and that sort of thing. So, so there's even a more diverse perspective to this whole conversation. What and how tolerant would a DRP be, or would you be insisting on the whole notion of religious teachings and Christianity in particular in schools?
Well, first of all, the DRP will uphold the Constitution of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And Section 9 of the Constitution of St. Vincent and the Grenadines
makes us all Christians.
Guarantees freedom of conscience of every single person. Do you know there's even a subsection which says that a student in school should not be subjected to religious teachings that are not in harmony with the religious teachings of his own?
Right.
There's actually a section in the Constitution that says that. In other words, in as much as there is the practice of prayers and assembly, etc., in schools, traditionally, it is not mandated by law, because that would be unconstitutional. And the DRP, being pro-constitution, being all about the rights and freedoms of the people, we will ensure that the constitutional protection of freedom of conscience of all peoples, including children in schools, is respected. And that would mean that there would be no mandatory Bible reading or anything like that. Let them continue with their tradition. Those who don't want to, for example, a child who's a Rasta and who doesn't want to participate, constitutionally he doesn't have to. It's right there in our Constitution. You can check it out, Section 9. Right? And we will continue to support that constitutional freedom because we don't want to infringe upon anybody's constitutional rights and freedom.
And to push the envelope even further, because as you said, the Constitution does not make us all Christians. It makes us...
Gives you freedom of conscience.
Gives you freedom of conscience.
Protects your freedom of conscience
so
that was given by God.
What God is implicit in this. What about people who do not believe in God? Where do they...
But that's the point.
When you
read the section,
fall?
It says nobody shall be hindered in the practice, etc., etc. So if you don't have a view that is conforms to the idea of God, like let's say that the Christian has, or you don't have to. Nobody can force you. It's a matter of conscience, freedom of conscience, and you're not supposed to be prosecuted by some law because you think or have a different opinion or different belief. As long as in your practicing of whatever you believe or don't believe, you don't infringe upon another person's freedom to practice their religion, then you're doing nothing wrong according to the law.
Could I be a member of the DRP if I was not a believer in God? Yes, Tony, you could
be a member of the DRP if you
could I become your deputy even?
If you qualify. So you see the root of
but you
these
see that
kinds of
qualification
questions.
is what
no, when I speak of qualify, I said it before when I talked about if you agree with the policies of the party and the way forward for the governance of the country.
Right.
You see the root
so
of
the policies
these
has
questions,
nothing to do with your religious beliefs.
No, that's the point. The root of these kinds of questions presupposes that governance includes religious sectarianism, that it's about that. But I'm making a point. Governance, political governance in a country is not about religious sectarianism. So it never factors into whether or not you believe this or that religiously to determine if you can qualify to serve politically.
And that is the root of the question. The root of the question really is trying to give you the opportunity to dispel what people may be thinking.
You see, the fact is, Tony, in reality, it's already dispelled because we have governments that have served and are serving with different kinds of religious persons. But you see, the propagandists and my detractors have tried to use that to make me look unfit. But when you compare with everybody else who's practicing their religion and still governing, It doesn't add up. It shows that it's a direct attack on me to try to make me look a certain way. But it's never an issue when you compare with the others. Let me give you an example. The New Democratic Party has a social, spiritual, and redemption charter, right?
Yes.
Social, spiritual, and redemption charter.
Yes.
And in that charter, 2 points in it say, and I quote, encourage prayer. They're saying this is what they would do if they were to get into governance. Encourage prayer. A school prayer and pledge to be recited daily. Prayer to be encouraged in public offices. And the second one is invigorate Sunday school. Support a fund for Sunday or Sabbath school teaching and teachers. Now, I've never heard anybody raise the issue that, oh, look, the NDP seems as if they're going to mandate prayer in schools. Well, maybe we should be wary of them.
In as much as you brought that up, that is something that I suppose you disagree with.
My point is, and I'm not even so much dealing with the issue of the content, but my point is, here the party is saying they will encourage this.
I hear you.
And they say, we will cause a school prayer and pledge to be recited daily. But I've never heard anybody ask them if they think their position on causing a prayer to be recited daily, which they have in their charter, which they tried to get into the parliament already, bringing a private member's bill, which they're saying they will implement if they get into governance. I've never heard any of their opponents question whether or not they're fit for governance because they have these spiritual values.
I'm going to ask you the question.
So it's unfair.
I'm going to ask you the question as much as you brought it up.
Okay.
Is that part of the charter progressive or not progressive?
It would not be progressive if you mandate it.
Okay.
If you say encourage prayer, that's okay. It's done already, as a matter of fact. But if you mandate it by any kind of law or rule, then it borders into infringing upon the freedom of conscience right, which is in the Constitution.
We've overrun seriously this segment here. We have one segment to come. I want to talk about some social issues, crime, etc. when we come back to the last segment.
All right.
This is Unrendered on IKTV. My guest is Mrs. Anesia Baptiste, the DRP leader. More when we come back.